Hello, 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 everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Wherever you are in the world, I'm sending you some warm greetings and salutations. It is your boy, Reverend Phoenix Coffin Williams, and I am coming to you with another Friday with Phoenix. And I am broadcasting to you from the beautiful Buffalo, New York, where it is starting to become autumn in full effect. Maybe not like full effect, but it is starting to autumn up a little bit. It's starting to get a little bit chillier in the mornings and the evening times, with the days being where we get most of our heat from. Leaves are starting to fall a little bit slowly off of the trees. I'm starting to notice them accumulate on the ground, and I'm starting to notice people starting to rake every once in a while. And it is just September 5th, but it is evidence that the wheel is turning, and the wheel does turn. So just a moment to check in with the cycles of nature and figure out where I am, in all the stuff that's happening, as the world turns. I have been talking a lot lately about the power of myth. I've been talking a lot lately about the way that we purposefully enter into a specific worldview or paradigm when we either claim a spirit as our patron or we allow ourselves to be claimed by a patron. So if you are in a magical tradition and you're like, yep, I'm a child of Isis, I'm a child of Hera, I'm a child of Aphrodite, my mama is the Morrigan, my mama is Carriedwen, my daddy is Canoe, like whatever it is, when you do that, you place yourself into a paradigm and a worldview where the mythologies of those characters become the framework or the format for you to blast your way through your own karma and your own life's challenges. I'm going to continue that discussion today. I did talk a little bit about how we find a lot of information about our divinities, about their skills, about what they're known for, about how they bless us. We find out a lot about them by reading up on their stories and on their mythologies. And I do have another one to talk about today to continue to drive home the importance of knowing the spirits that you are binding yourself to, or knowing the spirits that you are working with. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our sponsor. I'm going to show them a little bit, give them some love because we are thankful. So here's our sponsor. All right, excellent. Thank you, Equinox Learning, our sponsor. Today, the myth that I am going to focus on is from India. So for those of you who focus on that Shiva Shakti energy, or who might be aligned with Ganesha or Lakshmi, or even Kali Ma, this is a myth that comes from that place and from that pantheon. The myth today is called Indra defeats Vitra, demon of drought. Indra's combats are reflections of the natural phenomena of India. When the hot Indian summer draws to a close, the whole land is parched and thirsty for rain. Rivers are low, and many hill streams have dried up. Man and beast are weary and wait release from the breathless atmosphere. They are even threatened by famine. Then dense masses of cloud gather in the sky. The tempest bellows, lightnings flash, and thunder peals loudly. Rain descends in a deluge. Once again, torrents pour down from the hills, and rivers become swollen. Indra has waged his battle with the drought demons, broken down their fortress walls, and released the imprisoned cow clouds, which give nourishment to his human friends. The withered pastures become green with generous and rapid growth, and the rice harvest follows. According to Vedic myth, Indra achieved his first great victory immediately after birth. Vritra, the encompasser, the demon of drought, was holding the cloud cattle captive in his mountain fortress. Mankind begged for help from the gods, the shining ones, the world guardians. Who will take pity? Who will bring refreshment? Who will come nigh to help us in distress? Counsels the thoughts within our hearts are counseling. Wishes are wished and soar towards the highest. Oh, none but them, the shining ones, are merciful. My longing wings itself toward the eternals. Indra heroically rose up to the battle for the sacrificers. Impulsively, he seized the nectar of the gods, called Soma, and he drank that intoxicating juice. Then he snatched up his thunderstone, which had been fashioned by the divine artisan Twashtri. His favorite horses, named the Bold and the Brown, were yoked in his golden chariot by his attendants and followers, the youthful Maruts. Now, at the very beginning, Indra the golden child became the king of the three worlds. It was he who gave the air of life. He also gave strength. All the shining gods revered him and obeyed his commands. His shadow is immortality. His shadow is death. The Maruts, the sons of Red Rudra, were the spirits of tempest and thunder. Their chariots were pulled by two spotted deer and one swift-footed, never wearying red deer as leader. They were loyal and courageous youths. On their heads were golden helmets, and they had golden breastplates and wore bright skins on their shoulders. Their ankles and arms were decked with golden bracelets. The Maruts were always strongly armed with bows and arrows and axes, and especially with gleaming spears. All beings feared those cloud shakers when they charged forward with their lightning spears, which shattered cattle like the thunderstone. They were known to cleave cloud rocks and drench the earth with quickening showers. When Indra set off to attack the drought demon, the Maruts followed him, shouting with loud voices. They dashed towards the imprisoned cows of the clouds and chased them up into the air. The dragon Vritra roared when Indra came near, at which heaven shook and the gods retreated. Mother Earth, the goddess Prithvi, was troubled regarding her golden son, but Indra advanced boldly with the roaring Maruts. He was inspired by the hymns of the priests. He had drank the Soma. He was strengthened by the sacrifices offered on Earth's altars, and he wielded the Thunderstone. The drought demon deemed itself invulnerable, but Indra cast his weapon and soon discovered the vulnerable parts of its writhing body. He killed the monster, and as it lay face down in front of him, the torrents burst and carried it away to the sea of eternal darkness. Then Indra rejoiced and cried out, I have slain Vritra, O ye hastening Maruts. I have grown mighty through my own great vigor. I am the hurler of the bolt of thunder. For man flow freely now the gleaming waters. On earth, the worshippers of the god were happy, and the Rishi hymned his praises. A post-Vedic version of the encounter between Indra and Vritra is found in the Mahabharata, although it is colored by the change which, in the process of time, passed over the religious beliefs of the Aryans. It retains some features of the original myth. The story goes that in the first age of the universe, a host of Danavas, or giants and demons, were so strongly armed that they were invincible in battle. They selected the dragon Vritra as their leader and waged war against the gods, whom they scattered in all directions. Realizing that they could not regain their power until they accomplished the death of Vritra, the celestials appeared before the supreme being Brahma, the incantation of the soul of the universe. Brahma instructed them to obtain the bones of a rishi named Dadhichna, from which to construct a demon-slaying weapon. So the gods visited the rishi and bowed down before him and begged the request according to Brahma's advice. Dadhichna agreed to renounce his body for the benefit of the gods. So the rishi gave up his life, and from his bones, Twashritri, the artisan god, shaped Indra's great weapon, which is called Vajra. Twashriti spoke to Indra and said, "O chief of the celestials, with this, the best of weapons, reduce that fierce enemy of the gods to ashes, and having slain him, happily rule the entire domain of heaven with those who follow you." Then Indra led the gods against the mighty army. They found that Vritra was surrounded by the dreaded Danavas, who resembled mountain peaks. A terrible battle was waged, but once again the gods were put to flight. Then Indra saw Vritra growing bolder, and he became dejected. But the Supreme Being protected him, and the gods endowed him with their strength, so that he became mightier than before. Vritra was enraged and roared loudly and fiercely, so that the heavens shook and the earth trembled with fear. Deeply agitated, Indra flung his divine weapon, which killed the leader of the Danavas. But Indra, thinking the demon was still alive, fled from the field in terror to seek shelter in a lake. The celestials, however, saw that Vritra had been slain, and they rejoiced and shouted the praises of Indra. Then, rallying once more, the gods attacked the panic-stricken Danavas, who turned and fled to the depths of the ocean. There, in the fathomless darkness, they assembled together and began to plot how they would accomplish the destruction of the three worlds. Eventually, the conspirators resolved to destroy all the rishis who were possessed of knowledge and ascetic virtue, because the world was supported by them. So they made the ocean their home, raised rising waves high as hills for their protection, and began to come out from their fortress to attack the mighty saints. That is the myth of how Indra defeats Vritra. Now, Indra, well, actually, back up just a little bit. In that myth, we learn a great deal about the Indian or Hindu cosmology in just one myth. So, mind you, we didn't learn everything that we needed to learn or that is to be learned about this cosmology and this mythology, but we do know that in this cosmology there was, and to some extent is, a celestial battle between the gods and the demons. And historically, this myth has revealed that the demons have historically had the power to scatter the gods, and the gods have had the ability to impact the demons and send them into hiding into the ocean. Those who enter this cosmology by claiming to be or by donning the mantle of divinities that come from this cosmology. Like, this is something that you have to contend with in your life from the moment that you step on this Hindu-inspired path. You enter a cosmology where demons and gods fight with each other and go back and forth, scattering each other throughout creation. You also enter a cosmology where there is a supreme being who can arm your divinities with tools to scatter the demons, which means that you are armed with tools to scatter the demons in your life. So as the demons come to represent themselves in your life, maybe in the form of poverty, maybe in the form of addiction, maybe in the form of mental unwellness, or in the form of mental illness, maybe in the form of relationship struggles. Understand that as these demons enter your life in their various forms, there are divinities and beings who are on your side who fashion tools or who give you instructions on how to fashion tools to slay and scatter these demons. Fun thing to think about for a second. India, Hinduism, that's the place where we get our ideas about karma and reincarnation as modern pagans and witches, ceremonial magicians, shamans, like what have you. The idea of karma and reincarnation comes to us from India, and it comes to us from their caste system or their class system. And so understanding that effectively moving through some of the things that happen in our lives does play a part in managing our karma across the various lifetimes that our souls have existed. Mismanaging the situations in our lives leads to ongoing struggles with karma. I will say that Corellian ideas about karma and reincarnation do differ slightly from the ideas that were given to us by Hinduism and Buddhism. For Corellians, incarnation is not a punishment. Incarnation is what it is. It's what has to happen as all of us work through our karma. And incarnation isn't necessarily the place or the seat or the house of suffering where our souls come to work. It is just the place where our souls come to work, and there is pleasure and there is suffering. And depending on how we mediate between those, depends on how we move through our karma. So that's just like a little difference between Corellianism and Hinduism, Buddhism, and those doctrines of karma. But also understand that the doctrines of karma it serves the same purpose and it has the same function as the doctrine of original sin, in that we get here already marked from something that we had no control over before we were born. Our current mode of consciousness, our current mode of experiencing had no control over the stuff that we did in our previous lives. However, due to the things that were done there, due to the way that our souls acted and interacted and reacted, we have this life right now. We have this incarnation in which everything that is presented to us is a challenge that was created by karma. Gotta go to school, gotta go to work, gotta learn a trade, gotta have a partner. All of these things are indicative of karmic challenges. Going through them successfully and appropriately over and over and over and over and over again is what gets the chains broken. And doing that successfully and then choosing to reincarnate on purpose to help others navigate the tricky cycles of incarnation and karma is the work of the bodhisattvas, is the work of the saints, is the work of the devas. And in Corellianism, when we choose to consciously incarnate on purpose, we do it to continue the great work. And so ultimately, one of the greatest powers of Corellianism is the designing and initiating of your next life. So based on our understandings of our karma in this life as Corellian high clergyhood, we design our next life with a little bit more understanding of what needs to happen in order for us to be a little bit more successful. And then also, Corellians, we don't know between each other who among us is the purposefully reincarnated ancestors who are coming back to guide us in this incarnation, and who are the ones who are helping to move that energy through the web. It is all a part of the great work of being a Corellian, choosing to come back, being an ancestor, elevating, getting enlightenment, and choosing to come back is one of the things that we focus on Corellianism, helping ourselves and each other navigate through our karmic moments so that every soul is free to experience a reunion with divinity is a part of that great Corellian work. And getting better at magic, getting better with our psychic abilities, impacting reality so that everyone understands, hey, if you are not coming from a place of shadow interpretation, the ideas of lack are few and far between, and we could actually be doing a lot to support each other collectively. Might be one of the things that we, teach to try to help usher humanity into like this next age where we can continue to evolve. Because that is one of the other things that is um, uh, a core to Corellianism is recognizing that, like, hey, we are here. This is the very beginning of the age of Aquarius, and we are not going to be participating in the problematic behaviors and systems of the past. Instead, we are going to grow, change, adapt, evolve into new systems. And when it comes to the pantheon that you are existing under, the one with Indra and the Shining Ones from India, well, then what are the ways that these classical divinities, these very real spirits who do incarnate through us, how do they want to help us with their wisdom from their side of the veil? How do they want to help us transcend the gunk and the issues from the Piscean age so that we can have a successful, prosperous, wonderful start to the Aquarian age? That's the question. And so, for people who might be beginning a magical journey, ask yourself these questions. How do I want to impact my experience with my life by inviting divinities into my life? How do I want to impact my experience? How do I want to, or what are the trials that I want to go through as I work through my karma? Do I want to be in a pantheon where one of the ways that the soul got refined was to push a rock up a mountain for all eternity, or in which one of the ways that the soul was refined was they were sentenced to be chained to a rock and have like their gallbladder or their liver pecked out by an eagle just for it to be regrown? Think about these kinds of things when you are entering into a pantheon. Like, what do you actually want to be going through as you work through your karma? If you are not new to a magical path, if you are continuing your magical path, I want you to think about the deeper mysteries that are encoded in these myths. How does the demon of drought show up in your life? Metaphorically, allegorically, however you want to think about it. But like, take a moment. What situation in your life is the demon of drought? And how do you have to rise into this archetype of Indra, of the chief of the shining ones? And who is the supreme Brahma of your life who can teach you how to create a weapon to defeat this demon and scatter its army into the depths of the waves? How do you want to use the wisdom encoded in these mythologies and in your pantheon to help you be successful? The myth of Indra defeating Vritra, the demon of drought, does give us some insight. It does give us some ideas about magic. It does give us some ideas about who our helpers might be, who is going to ride into battle with us. If you were the kind of person, you might consider the Maruts from the myth. You might consider creating thought forms or egregores for yourself and who take on the ideas and the identities of the Maruts, and give them thunderstones so that as you go on throughout your life you have these automatic egregores or these thought forms that you have programmed to help you slay your demons as you go out throughout your life. Setting up a little spiritual posse for yourself to help you slay your demons because you are aware of them automatically. You enter the pantheon with the Indian divinity, Indians from India, and they do have a dichotomy in which the demons and the gods are fighting. You enter that willingly, how you want to go to battle with your demons. That's something that you can decide for yourself right up front. What are the skills that you already possess? What are the skills that you need to get in order to be more successful? That's one of the wonderful things about entering a pantheon and having a patron is that the things that you go through as you're living life on life terms, those can be externalized into the language of the myth. And a lot of power and a lot of magic and a lot of success can come from doing that, externalizing your issues and changing the narrative on purpose as a person with power. This discussion and this myth specifically about Indra and the demon of drought is still leading up to that larger discussion about how do we as Corellians view, work with, manage, maintain, utilize magic with energies that have been known as demons. Because very, very many pantheons do have creatures or energies or critters that are referred to as demons. And then some other pantheons don't necessarily have demons, but they have forces that teach lessons in less than gentle ways. So, one of the things that we have to do is learn the difference between a demon and an energetic construct or a divinity that deals in trickery for the sake of the soul's evolution. Because one thing to think about, or one thing that we do kind of know, is that in these cosmologies that do have demons, and it's not just the Indian or the Hindu system or the Buddhist system, but other pagan polytheistic pantheons did have demons, or do have demons, and these spirits do believe themselves to be the exact opposite or the fighting force against the ones that are considered to be gods or saints or what have you. And so differentiating between a demon and a trickster spirit or even a trickster god is going to be important. Then understanding the the demonization process or the bastardization process is also going to be helpful in understanding how to work with, deconstruct, and reconstruct these energies. Because for us as magical people and as witches, we do actually work through our own karma by handling our relationship to the things that we consider our demons. Because even if we don't dwell in a pantheon with Indra who have demons, we in our lives recognize that we go through things that lead to the creation of inner and outer demons that have to be contended with. And so this process is good for the spiritual demons that believe themselves to be the antithesis to gods and saints and angels or what have you. And then we will also talk about managing relationships with our inner demons as they manifest in our psyche and in our personalities. And it will be translated into how we can manage or deal with the demons that arise from our behavior as a society. So, just like a way to foreshadow, consider the idea of imperialism as a social demon. I will say that we are at our time for today. Thank you to everyone who has been watching. I will be back next week with more discussions along this line. And as always, if you want to talk to me, you can respond in these chats. I will see you next week. May you bless you.